I'd like to share with you 3 things that you can do as far as the importance of dealing with your mental health on an emotional level. It can help reduce depression, can help reduce anxiety, it can help reduce fatigue that you may experience. Number 1, it's important to keep short emotional accounts. There's a lot of pain that happens in life. We live in a broken world, and so there are a lot of things that can happen to us. As children, a lot of times we don't have a lot of help with what we're dealing with. We may feel some pain, and unfortunately sometimes we're just told to buck up, be strong, be courageous. And those things have value, but we also need to be honest with what we feel, dealing with our pains, dealing with our hurts. And when we get involved in ministry, I think probably the temptation is even stronger to just simply try to be strong and not deal with the hurt. But I'm often reminded of the verse in Matthew chapter 5, verse 4, where Jesus said, "Blessed are those who mourn, for they shall be comforted." Those pockets of pain in life can run deep, and just trying to push it down will only work so long. Eventually, those pockets of pain will catch up with us, especially if we're involved in ministry. So what can you do? Sometimes at the most inopportune times, our emotions can rise up. Maybe it's in the midst of a challenging sermon series that we're preparing. Maybe it's when a deacon has said, no, they're out of here. Whatever it may be, those times can be very difficult. And if we just push our pain down, it won't resolve the hurt. Face the pain. In other words, touch the stove again. And I know that's really hard. We were initially created for a world without pain. So the idea of touching our pain runs contrary to that. But lean into it. Deal honestly with the hurts, the fears, the disappointments, the grief, the anger that can be present, our inadequacies, those things that we struggle with. Lean into them and face them. It's through God's power that by facing those pockets of pain, He will bring healing in our lives. Number 2, be careful not to avoid the time that you need for your wholeness. Your wholeness is important, and knowing what your limits are, knowing what your boundaries are, is extremely valuable. Sometimes we press on as if we're the only ones who can respond to the needs of those around us. But keep in mind that one of the key elements of ministry is to prepare the saints for the works of service. Ephesians 4:9 speaks into that. And if you are just, in a sense, feeling like you're doing everything that you have to do as you're the only one, you're likely going to burn out. And it's likely that you'll burn out on each end. Are you prioritizing those things that are important in your life? Are you spending time with your spouse? Are you spending time in prayer, in meditation? Are you resting? Are you getting that time away? We all need to be rejuvenated. And if we're working 100 miles an hour, it's going to be a problem. I was in ministry a number of years ago, and I remember thinking to myself that a pastor has as many bosses as they have members in their congregation. In fact, I would probably say as they have attendees in their congregation. If you have a difficult time saying no, you're setting yourself up for difficulty. So take that time. Prepare yourself and live in that balance. It's also important to keep in mind that that balance can go both ways. In other words, sometimes the concept of self-care can go to an extreme in one direction. I remember a colleague of mine's phrase. He was talking about bowling. He said, either gutter will get you the same score. So remember to be balanced in your energy and your time. Number 3, the importance of focusing in on the truth. There's a passage in the book of Lamentations, Lamentations chapter 3, verses 16 through 24, and it places side by side 2 important truths. The first one is the importance of dealing honestly with our pain, and we talked about that just a little bit earlier, the importance of keeping short emotional accounts. Facing it, leaning into it, not ignoring it, not denying it, not spiritualizing it, not minimizing it, but facing it head on. But secondly, the importance of being able to look at what is true beyond our pain. As Jeremiah was standing over Jerusalem, which had been defeated by the Babylonians, it was a war zone. And he's standing there. He's not a happy camper. And as he's standing over it, he also made a decision to say, "This I call to mind, and therefore I have hope. The steadfast love of the Lord never ceases. His mercies never come to an end." It's important for you to be able to focus in on what is true. What is true beyond your pain? In fact, I would encourage you, write it out, write it down, and review it. Because it's not just dealing with the pain, it's also the truth beyond the pain. Let me just share a brief analogy. I'm going to the dentist tomorrow. I've had a lot of experience in my life at the dentist's office. And when a dentist is dealing with a cavity, there are two things that need to be done. First, the importance of drilling out the decay, and secondly, the importance of the filling. The two mistakes that a dentist can make, one is if they don't drill long enough. The other is if they drill too long. And so the importance of you dealing honestly with your pain, but also then looking at what is true beyond your pain. Keeping short emotional accounts, making sure that you have the appropriate boundaries and you're setting aside that time. And thirdly, focus in on the truth. God's presence, God's love for you is what can transform each one of us.